So hello, welcome back to Porsche Perth. We're in the service centre for good reason. You see, the GT3 has just clocked over 41,000 miles. Now in a minute, we're going to run through with Kenny to see how it's fared since the 25,000 mile major service, see if there's any problems, issues, things to swap out and change. But the reason that we've got a GT3 Touring parked here is because the aim of the game now is to give this a sort of midlife refresh. Can we convert this GT3 into a GT3 Touring? We're going to get them both on the ramp, see if there's any differences in aero underneath, and then we're going to speculate and always want to hear from you with regards to what we should do with this car. We're talking color changes, wheel changes, interior trims, a full facelift. What would you do? Imagine if you could go back when the 991 Gen 2 launched, you got a full PTS slot, you could do whatever you wanted. Let me know in the comments below. Let's hit it. How's things, Kenny?
Good, yourself?
Great, mate. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
I was just saying, the last time we were here, 25,000 miles. We're now here at just over 41,000 miles.
That's right.
Is there much of a difference in terms of the things you'd look for?
Similar service. The last one was a major one, so that included your spark plugs, air filters, drive belt. This one's a minor service, so it's more just an oil and filter change.
Cool.
Pollen filters and cabin filter for the car as well, and just obviously a general visual check over and make sure everything's okay.
We've also plugged in the diagnostics, right?
Yeah, we've done a diagnostic run through, so that was running on the car in the background. So it's just finished, so it'll show us if there's any faults in the car. It also tells us if there's any software updates or anything as well. So if there was any warranty recalls, it'll show up here. It's shown there is a fault in the gateway, but it could even be just a power glitch.
Okay.
And a couple others, so we'll click all the faults and then the fault memory. So yeah, most of them are just...
So we'll click all the faults.
Yeah. So I know, a lot of them are ones we would normally see anyway, so tyre pressures is low, so that's part of the service anyway.
Right.
When it's greyed out like that,
Yes.
that means it's a stored fault.
Okay.
So it's possibly been there, it's maybe been a glitch or something.
Right,
so,
So when you say faults, they're not necessarily faults.
No, they're not necessarily faults.
FYIs.
Yeah, they've just pinged up at some point, and it's brought on, stored a diagnostic code.
I see.
We would clear them, then obviously when we finished our check for road test, and then recheck. If anything that was there originally flagged back up, then obviously we know there's a fault, but generally it's all stored faults that maybe have just been a glitch. Say you were saying the engine light had been on.
Right, okay.
And then we could go in and it would check us, say, maybe an O2 sensor or a misfire or something, then it would generally come up as active, illuminated, like the ones for the tyre pressure monitoring. And then that would give us something to diagnose on,
Right, okay. So thankfully we've got no
Thankfully there's nothing,
there.
thankfully there's nothing there, just like say your tyre pressure monitoring, that's just because the tyre pressures are being adjusted.
It's funny, it's all flashing back from the last time, Kenny. I remember Kenny pointing out this is, I guess, road rash?
Road rash, yeah, speed bump, or...
I'm going to put that down to clipping some serious apexes.
Yeah.
Just so it sounds cool.
I think you've been living like the WRC drivers, cutting some corners.
Looking good. I tell you what is interesting. Do you remember the last time we were here,
brakes,
there was that brake sort of etching?
Yeah.
That's beginning to fade?
So last time, I wasn't sure. I think it was just down to the fact the pads were so low.
Right,
It had marked the discs. There is still plenty of depth on the pads yet. There maybe about 8 or 9 millimeters on the pads yet.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe not using the brakes as hard as you could be.
Well, last year there was not much track day action.
No, I suppose, everything was closed down.
I remember when we saw you, we'd not long come back from the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
And I think we might have speculated that the CV boot had gone because of the heat, right? It was like
potentially,
excessive heat. And that ring session, for 2 of the days, it was the hottest day on German record.
Was it?
Yeah, and we were lapping, and I think that may have been that time. I'm not sure as well if I'm imagining this or not.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure the valves are always opening on the exhaust.
On the exhaust?
Yeah.
So that's them. So there's one at this side. One there. So
yeah, the vacuum
usually,
pipes on it.
I mean, manually checking them, that one's moving fine.
Yeah.
The other one.
All right.
That one's moving fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can certainly do a check with the tester as well. You can manually check them with the tester, make sure it's running. It's switching when it's running as well.
Yeah.
Because it works on a vacuum off the engine, so it needs to be running to activate it. It could be a vacuum issue certainly when it's running, but we can certainly check that.
Maybe some WD-40 on it.
they are a bit squeaky. It's just a little spring.
Yeah.
At least they're moving.
Yes, that's it. Grand. All right. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
Okay, so it just so happens that my business partner conveniently happens to have a 991 GT3 Touring. I say that because I recently heard that there could be under 50 of these in the UK. I know that sounds crazy, but it turns out that these things are incredibly rare, much rarer than the winged counterparts. Now, the whole point of us getting this up here is because if we're taking the wing off the GT3, we want to know if there's any aero differences on the underside of this car. So let's check it out. And it kind of looks like, having just been under that one with Kenny, they're identical. So the reason I'm interested in the front end is doing some research into a ducktail conversion for the 991. I've heard reports that the front end aero on a Touring is different to that of the front end aero of a GT3 based on how they have to balance the car with and without a wing on it. Turns out that might not be the case. They literally look identical, other than this one looking pretty box fresh. Damn it, this one looks really clean. Yes, even, I don't know what they are, but even they're intact. But it looks like we wouldn't have to revise the front end of the car too much. Now, having said that, maybe there is specifics for the ducktail conversion, which you have to adjust something on the front of the car. I'm not sure. We'll do some research into that, and also comments from you, feedback from you. If you're aware of a conversion kit, I've spoken to a couple of guys. If you're aware of a conversion kit for a ducktail that we could potentially put onto the 991, that'd be interesting. Let me know. Okay, welcome to the Porsche spec room, quite literally where dreams are made. So this is the point where we really want to get you involved. The channel is very much led by you, and this is an opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, imagine you had a PTS or even an exclusive manufacturer slot on a 991 Gen 2 manual. That's what we're planning on doing with this car, giving it a full midlife refresh, including the interior. Now, there's some options here, not everything, but we could go wild. And what I'm going to try and do when this goes live, head over to our Instagram account now. In the stories, we're going to put up a few different colors of Porsches, and if you can vote on them, give us a guidance and see what you guys like. But look at the options. I mean, there's things in here you don't always see. This has got a subtle, this fabric, this is a lizard green stripe on a sort of black technical fabric that, for example, could sit in the middle of the seats. If you wanted to, it could go on the side bolsters, but I quite like the idea of a technical fabric in the middle of the seat, a la Alcantara, something like that, trimmed with a contrasting side bolster. I like the idea of going heritage, so maybe we'll go for some sort of heritage color and then give a nod to heritage cars inside. It is a manual, which means we can get pretty playful with gear knobs, gear sticks, things like that. Speaking of which, let me just show you this. This has kind of been widely publicized, but for some reason not always acknowledged. Look how the gear sticks are made, particularly for the PDK cars. It starts as a single block of ingot, like an ingot aluminium block, which in this instance for some reason looks like a little milk, like a little milk box. And then they are CAD from a single block into a beautiful gear stick. Now, when I see things like that, you'd be forgiven for thinking that, these things was just sort of stuck on and around, and it goes on a general shape underneath this. But knowing that this is carved from a single block of aluminium, I think sets quite a lot of context as to the quality of the interior of these cars. And then you begin to look at everything else in a different light. We'll come back to that shortly. This is where we want the comment section full of options. If you follow us on Instagram, head over there and be sure to tag me in as many options and different specs, crazy as you like, as you possibly can, and we'll take them all on board. We're gonna download them all, screenshot them all, get a mood board up there, and then in the coming weeks and months, we're gonna do this. This car's getting a complete refresh as if we had a PTS slot. And look at the color options. I mean, you can completely transform a car. We have a crayon sample somewhere. Oh, right there, in fact. So this is where we're at right now, okay? I mean, we can dramatically change the look and feel of this car. There's no PTS paint samples in here. I'd love to see a Ruby Stone sample. I mean, a Ruby Stone 991 sounds good. We've gone Signal on the 992 GT3, which is actually a paint which originated back in the 60s, and I quite like how that 60s vibe still seems to suit a modern day shape. So we could go for all sorts of things. Now check out this drawer here. There are options which you may not even think about. You can match the vents perhaps with the interior of the car, or the exterior. You can go for a completely different contrast around the vent with a paint job, or if you want to go a little bit more artisan, you can trim it in leather with a contrast stitch around the vent itself. It's endless. We could have embossing going on the armrests, inserts for cup holder spaces, for example. Do we go old? Do we go full retro vibe and throw in some wood in there? I don't know. Maybe we have a wooden gear shifter. It's honestly, options are endless, and there's more contemporary colors too. We've got papaya metallic here. I think this is a metallic green. This was launched on the Taycan. So metallic colors, not something I've actually thought of. Weirdly, I don't know about you, I don't associate, oddly, GT products with metallic paints. Would that be an option? Who knows? It just goes on and on. Carpet colors. And these are just the options that are in this room. The exclusive manufacturer stuff, I mean, that's a leather color. What is that? Acid green leather. You could go nuts. I actually quite like this. Look at that. What is that? Titanium blue. Ooh. What color would you pair? Would you pair the exterior of a car with titanium blue? Perhaps a silver, perhaps? Pretty decent. All sorts of different contrast stitchings. What's in this drawer? Oh, carbons, woods, veneers, inlays. Look at the different kinds of carbon weaves as well, which are here. So that's a more conventional sort of black ash with a very subtle pinstripe inlay in there. And then you've got a completely technical carbon interior. And there's different weaves of carbon as well. Tighter weaves, wider weaves. Yeah, really and truly, get involved. Let's spec this car together. I want tags on Instagram. I want photos shared. Grab handles in carbon. Grab handles in beautiful. I mean, that looks like it's off a yacht. I mean, the difference in wrapping exactly the same component in a different finish transforms the whole thing. I mean, we can go wild. So yeah, not afraid to go fairly big on this project and really make it our own. As I mentioned previously, the idea with the 991 GT3 is to keep it probably as a forever car. We're definitely aiming for 100,000 miles in this thing. We're at 41K now, as you've just seen. It's looking in pretty good condition, but I reckon a refresh, just to sort of give it some extra life and interest, and also make it our own. That is a limed oak interior package. Maybe we can turn this into like a speedboat look. It's gonna be mega. Very excited indeed. Okay, so as you can see, endless options, and these are just the options in this room. It is literally, if you can dream it, chances are it can be created. So comments below, feedback, tags, suggestions. This is going to be a hell of a project. We're going to take you along for the ride. Now we're going to head back to the cars, give an overview of why we're doing this, and then yeah, perhaps one of you guys will ultimately end up deciding the spec that we go for. Okay, so you may be wondering, Why are you doing that? Why do you want to mess with your GT3? Perfectly fine. We're in an incredibly fortunate position that we now have 3 winged GT3s in the garage. We have the 991 Gen 2 manual GT3. We've got a 997 GT3 RS 4 litre. I still can't believe those words are leaving my mouth. And the new 992 GT3, all with fairly substantial wings on them. And we thought, do you know what? We've lived with this car now for over 40,000 miles. Wouldn't it be great? Because I love the profile of this car, but what I really like the idea of is a halfway house. So perhaps integrating a sort of ducktail vibe onto this car. So it's not trying to be a touring, but it has that sort of ethos. It's a manual, it's got no cage. I just think it would be brilliant to do the next journey of its life in a different form. And we've got the opportunity to do that. So rather than having 3 big wings from the same brand, let's mix it up. We all love the touring. Let's see if we can make a middle ground bespoke version with your input. As always, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Ciao.